If we remember back to the start of the postseason, the biggest storyline from the first round was the dominance of Luka Doncic, which included a shot for the ages. Kawhi Leonard had previously been the best player in every series he played in during his time as a Raptor, and the years prior with the Spurs he was pretty dominant as well, but Luka went toe-to-toe with Kawhi and proved he was a top 5 player in the NBA and could potentially be even better as soon as next year. Unfortunately, there was only so much Luka could do. The Mavs didn't have an answer for Kawhi, and more importantly, they didn't have their 7'3" shooting guard who had absolutely dominated the bubble prior to his meniscus injury, averaging 30 and 10 in the seeding games and even having a few big games during the playoffs on a torn meniscus. Ridiculously impressive what KP was doing. And we'll talk more about what KP can do going forward, but regardless of what you think of this Clippers team, they are still and were still a very strong team. And an undermanned Mavericks team took them to 6 games, and if you questioned whether Luka could handle the playoffs, apparently crowds in Europe don't exist to some people, but anyways, if you questioned how good he could be in the playoffs, you got the answer right there. He proved that no guard in the league can stop him. I mean, Pat Bev can do all the yapping, but he was getting absolutely bullied in the paint. He's just too big. Pause. He was even bullying the likes of Montrezl Harrell inside, which obviously we saw how he reacted to that. Like, some people forget just because of how skilled Luka is that he's 6'7" and about 225 pounds. Like, he's kind of in that LeBron category. He's the same size as Kawhi Leonard. He's not as strong as those guys and he'll get stronger, but he can pretty much physically overpower everyone outside of some of the biggest wings and some of the biggest bigs in the league, and did so to pretty much everyone on the Clippers outside of Kawhi Leonard. And the numbers back it up, putting up 31, 10, and 9 on 50% from the field and a bad ankle over the series. Like, come on, man, this guy's just different. We always talk about who the best player in the NBA is. Anthony Davis, KD, LeBron, Steph, Kawhi, whoever you want to talk about. These are all established guys. They fluctuate and will often be unstoppable for the most part, but we have seen their best, which is very good, sometimes incredible. But Luka could even get better than what he is, even stronger, even faster, even better at shooting, even better at pretty much everything that he did exceptionally well during this year's postseason and this year's regular season. He's just going to get even better, and in a league run by superstars, Doncic could be the best player in the league as soon as next year, and if he continues to improve like he did, he could be the best player by a fair bit. Now, quickly before I get into the video, if you could drop a like right now, that would be much appreciated, as well as subbing to the channel. I make content like this like 5 to 6 times a week, so if you enjoy this kind of video, then drop a like, sub to the channel. It would be much appreciated. Anyways, let's get back into it. Now, putting Luka to the side for a bit, it's hard to do that when you have someone that good, but this Mavs team have flexibility, and that is something that should be incredibly exciting going forward. As much as they wanted to win the championship this year was kind of about seeing what they were capable of, and even without their second best player, they got a good idea of the potential they have in this roster alone, and also what they need to strengthen, and unlike a lot of other good teams, they have a chance to do that with the cap space and flexibility they have on their roster currently. Now, one weakness that was exposed was their lack of wing defense, with Kawhi just torching the Mavs as he got inside and to his spot at will. Now, in order to stop the best players in the league, you often have to have a few different options that you can throw at them, and even still, it probably won't be enough, and that's not what you want. You're not going to ask for someone to completely clamp up someone like a Kawhi Leonard or LeBron James. That's never going to happen, but if the Mavs could get a few guys capable of knocking down the 3 ball and just playing good defense that would tire them down and put them a bit below their average, or a bit below what Kawhi did against the Mavs this series, then that would be ideal. You've got a great option in Justin Holiday. Drew would be great as well, but as a free agent, Justin is a reliable 3-point shooter and has been a pretty good defender most of his career. Another guy in that mold is Jeremy Grant, who would be a bit more expensive after this year's postseason, but he would be even better going forward. He's someone who can get to the rim, someone who can shoot, someone who can guard the players like LeBron, which we saw in the postseason, and he would be unbelievable for the Mavs if they could somehow snap him up. But pretty much any wing that can defend and shoot is what they need, and one of Grant, Jay Crowder, Holiday, Millsap, any of these guys that could be serviceable and could help the team given the right price. These players also fit the tough veteran mold type of player that the Mavs were supposedly keen on bringing in, which is what was reported. We saw what the Clippers tried to do to Luka to get him riled up and off his game. It didn't work at all, but teams will continue to try and do that, particularly when you don't have guys around him that are particularly big physical presences going the other way, which Dallas don't really have apart from Boban, but he's not going to do anything that way. I think he's a bit too nice. You then have the options of bringing in the likes of Holiday or Oladipo, Holiday of the Drew variety that is, just to elevate their team to that next level, and bringing in a second or third option that has been a star in the past and are currently still great two-way players might be the move they look to make. Now, personally, with the 2021 free agency looming, if they could somehow sign 2 good role players to 1-year contracts, I know it's a lot to ask, but if they could somehow do that, then I'd probably opt over that instead of bringing in someone having to give up assets and having to give up cap space and a contract. But putting the free agency and the trades to the side, another one of the many things Dallas has going for them is an established championship coach in Rick Carlisle. There aren't many championship coaches in the league, and particularly one like Carlisle, who continues to evolve and find ways to put his team in the best position to win like he did this season. A historic offense and a historic second season for Luka. I just have faith in Carlisle and his ability to get the best out of a roster that is more than likely going to be contending for a championship sooner rather than later. And then you can add another positive if you look at it in a positive light, and that's that the Mavs had the 6th best point differential in the NBA and only the 13th best win percentage. Now, some of this has to do with their firepower and ability to blow out teams, but a lot has to do with the fact they only won 17 of a possible 41 games that were decided in the clutch. This is very low when you consider every other playoff team is ahead of them in that department, and the closest team to them was the Heat, who finished with an even 18-18 record during the regular season. Teams like the Nuggets, Jazz, Raptors, Bucks, and Lakers, among other top seeds, won close to or above 65% of their games, decided in clutch situations, and ultimately that's the difference between the Mavs being a 7th seed and being a top 4 seed, which they had the potential to be this year. Now, some of this has to do with the dependence on Luka and how stagnant their offense can get, waiting for him to make a shot, and some of it can be attributed to luck. Look, I'm not here to say they got unlucky, because clearly this is an issue, but you saw the Heat had a record of 18-18 during the regular season, and then come the playoffs, they ended up winning 9 of 11 games in those situations so far. So, it can change very quickly, and I don't know if the Heat did anything drastically different, apart from just find a way to close out games and just operate more in a team environment, giving it to the hot hands, which I think the Mavs have to do a bit more. Give it to Porzingis if he's hot, give it to Hardaway if he's hot. Still run the offense through Luka, but he doesn't need to be jacking up 30-foot step-back threes all the time when the game's on the line. There are a few teams with more room for improvement than Dallas. If there were 2 players that I would have the most confidence of any of the teams looking to improve that could take their game to a different level, it would be Luka and Porzingis. Porzingis I have so much confidence in because of how good he was to end the season, and because of the fact he is playing with one of the best players in the league, and in a system and alongside a player that is really well suited to him and complements him. And then you have Luka, who could obviously go to an even higher high next year. But an underrated aspect of the Mavs is the role players and the affordability at which they have managed to tie down most of these players. We didn't even see Dwight Powell or Jalen Brunson, who I really like. Brunson in particular is someone you can play 15 to 25 minutes a night as someone who will come in and control the second unit or play alongside Luka and just make the right plays, whether that be getting to the basket with his nifty moves or hitting the occasional 3-ball or just making the right pass. He's just a very solid point guard on a rookie contract at that. Then you have the shooters in Tim Hardaway Jr. and Seth Curry, with Curry being one of the best shooters in the NBA, of course, and Tim Hardaway Jr. turning from a guy that would give you 30 points on 12 of 15 one night and then 5 points on 1 of 8 shooting the next night to a much more consistent player, and we saw that in full effect during the playoffs. The $18 million that he will pick up next year is a bit hefty, but you could do a lot worse. For example, you have Danny Green at $15 million over the next 2 years. I'm definitely taking Hardaway Jr.'s production at just shy of $20 million a year over whatever Danny Green dishes up with his 1 block a game and his 2 corner threes out of a possible 12 every 2 games. But getting back to why I'm so high on Dallas is Dallas are in a situation unlike any other team in the league. They have a top 5 player in the league on a rookie contract, and that gives them the flexibility to go after another potential big star in the 2021 free agency window, which I'm sure they're going to be eyeing. But in the meantime, they should have the funds necessary to pick up 1 or 2 more role players that could provide more substance defensively and just knock down shots. One superstar, a star, and a very good third option is a recipe for success in the NBA if that's the route the Mavs choose to go on. But also with the Lakers, we've seen a dominant pairing and role players surrounding that dominant pairing can win you championships. I mean, it's a bit premature, they haven't won it yet, but yeah, it can win you championships. A lot of Dallas's success next year will rely on the development of Kristaps, and why I'm so high on him, I made a full video on that if you want to check it out, but basically putting up 26 and 10 after moving to the center spot in February, and then putting up 30 and 10 during the bubble. There's a bit more to it, but the numbers just do the talking. And yeah, he could really be a dominant force next year and going forward. And if you want to watch a video more in depth on why I think that, it'll be linked in the description. It'll be at the end of the video for you to click on. Just looking at what the Mavs could have done this season, Porzingis stays healthy in the postseason, they could have beat the Clippers. They win half of their close games during the regular season, and they're a much higher seed. These aren't things that are just going to change for certain next year, but I can't see a team led by Luka Doncic continuing to be winning games decided in the clutch at around 40% as opposed to the average of teams around the Mavs level being closer to 60%. If they can clean this up and even bring it to 50%, they could secure themselves a top 3 or 4 seed in the West, without even mentioning the clear potential for external and internal development in the form of free agency or their 2-star players or both. There's just a lot of room for improvement and a lot of room to be optimistic going forward. It's not going to be the next 3 or 4 years. It's going to be the next 1 or 2 years where the Mavs could shock everyone and win a championship. If you did enjoy the video, a like would be greatly appreciated. Trying to make this content very regularly. Somehow, if you made it to the end of this video and you enjoyed it, like it. Even if you didn't enjoy it, like it. Anyways, I'll catch you next time. Have a good day.